of the day, which is on role of standards in achieving sustainable development goals. This panel will be moderated by Dr. Kumar Sivarajan, and it will have Dale Seed from 1M2M, Lars Nielsen from GCF, Mohammed Ba from ITU, Mr. MP Singhal from CCICI, Mr. Puneet Jain from 3GPP, representing 3GPP SA2, Reena Garg from BIS, and Dr. Sudhir Dikshit from IEEE SA. And I'll just quickly give an introduction to the panel chair, Dr. Kumar Sivarajan, who's also our founder chair at TSTSI. Dr. Kumar is currently the Chief Technology Officer at Tejas Networks. He's received the Swarna Jayanti Fellowship from the Department of Science and Technology, Government of India, which is awarded to outstanding young scientists to pursue basic research in frontier areas of science and technology. Dr. Kumar has co-authored the best-selling book titled Optical Networks: A Practical Perspective, which is currently in its third edition. He is also the recipient of the prestigious IEEE WRG Baker Prize Paper Award in '97, which is presented for the most outstanding paper reporting original research in the transactions, journals, and magazines of the societies or in the proceedings of the IEEE. Yeah, thank you, sir. We yeah, we also have joining us in person Mr. MP Singhal, who was also served on the governing council of TSTSI earlier. Mr. Singhal has served in various capacities in India and outside India. He has a vast experience in the area of information technology, wireless communications, mobile technologies, optical fiber, GPON technologies, HRD, and vigilance functions. He has won many awards, medals, and certificates for his contributions in the fields of telecommunications, including Sanchar Ati Vishesh Seva Medal from the Government of India. Mr. Singhal is representing CCICI today. Then we have the panelists who are joining us online. So I'll go with Reena Garg first. Reena is Scientist F and currently the head of Electronics and IT Standardization Department of Bureau of Indian Standards. She holds a Bachelor of Electronics and Communications from Netaji Subhash Institute of Technology, New Delhi, and an MBA. She has over 29 years of experience in the field of electronics and IT standardization activities at BIS. She's handled the standardization work in various important areas, including system security, biometrics, EMC, identification cards, data management systems, computer hardware and peripherals, Indian language technologies and products, etc., etc. Thank you, Reena, for joining us online. Next, we have Dale Seed. Dale is representing 1M2M today. Dale is a principal engineer at Interdigital Incorporated. In this role, Dale focuses on IoT research and innovation and also participates in several M2M IoT industry standards bodies, including 1M2M, 3GPP, IETF, and ETSI. Dale is currently also the vice chairman of 1M2M Technical Plenary, and he's the one who started the sustainability initiative at 1M2M, currently also serving as the convener of the SSC initiative at 1M2M. Thank you, Dale, for joining us. Next, we have Lars Nielsen from GCF. Unfortunately, because of a conflict of meetings, Lars is not able to join us, but he sent us a message, which we will read out. Lars is a general manager of Global Certification Forum. In a career spanning nearly 30 years at Motorola, Lars' wide-ranging experience covers the development, testing, quality, and compliance of mobile devices, as well as the management of international regulatory and policy issues. Next, we have Mr. Mohammed Ba, representing ITU. Mohammed Ba is a senior coordinator for digital innovation ecosystems at the ITU, the UN Specialized Agency for ICT Telecommunication, where he has worked for the past 6 years. His role is to help strengthen ITU member states' capacity to innovate and integrate ICT innovation in their national development goals. Thank you, Mr. Ba, for joining us. Then we have Mr. Puneet Jain. Puneet is a senior principal engineer and director of technical standards in the Next Generation and Standards Group at Intel Corporation. Puneet is representing 3GPP SA2 today in the team. Puneet is here with us now. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Sudhir Dikshit. who will be representing IEEE SA today. Sudhir Dixit is the co-founder, senior fellow and evangelist at the Basic Internet Foundation in Oslo, Norway, and heads its US operations. I now hand over to Dr. Kumar.
Thank you, Bindu. Thank you all for joining this panel discussion from around the world. If you notice, the previous panels were slightly narrow. They said do 5G, 6G, or role of use cases. So this is the broadest panel. It's the role of standards in the theme of the conference, which is sustainable development. All the panelists are developing, are representing the leading standardization organizations of the world. Okay, you heard them all being introduced. Just a short remark on sustainable development. I think we've all been hearing green for 10 years, but I think the Ukraine war, put that in the forefront. We all need to save energy. I think Europe is facing the brunt of it, so it's very sort of timely that we're having this sustainable focus. Also, I think the amount of power that base stations were consuming was not really known except to the operators. Now, everybody is aware that this is guzzling energy. So we have to, we didn't do anything about it in 4G. 4G guzzled a lot of power. We didn't realize. 5G, we started to realize, but it's probably late. So I think 6G, we better do a good job of ensuring, it consumes less energy, not per bit, per gigabit or whatever, but less energy, period. Because our green energy goals are to reduce the carbon footprint from where we are today. So not like based on, you can't increase it based on the data being consumed. So with that short introduction, I would like to invite the panelists one by one to air their views on what their standardization organizations are doing in the area of new standards for sustainable development. It can be any standard that you're doing. It need not be 6G, okay, because these are all different. But whatever you're doing can be called 6G, okay. The order of speakers is as listed in the program, which will be 1M2M, GCF, ITU, CCIC, ICI, 3GPPSA2, BIS, and then IEEE. It's not entirely random. It's alphabetical by your first names. So having said that, I'd now call upon Dale Seed from 1M2M for his views on standards for sustainable development. Over to you, Dale.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction.
I hope all of you
I'm
heard
going
me.
to share my
Did you all
screen.
hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you now, Dale. Please go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. So what I thought I would do today for the panel is bring the perspective from the IoT and from the 1M2M standard perspective to the panel. So I just have a few slides. I'll keep this brief because I know we have many speakers, but I'll start off here with just the importance of the IoT and the overall ecosystem, whether it's 5G, 6G, or even beyond in other types of non-cellular use cases. I think we all agree that IoT is very important. It's a well-positioned technology to help reduce the environmental impact on many different use cases like smart farming, smart energy, et cetera, et cetera. However, what's often overlooked is IoT technologies themselves have their own carbon footprint. So that carbon footprint can undermine the benefits of IoT if not deployed responsibly. So we just can't go around slapping a sensor on everything in the world and expect all is good and all of our problems will be fixed by IoT, right? So taking a look at that, give me 1 second here. Yeah, reshare my screens here. My apologies for that. So when we take a look at IoT, it's really a system-wide concern. So to minimize the power and the consumption of an IoT deployment, we really have to take a look at the end-to-end IoT system and the deployment as an end-to-end perspective. So that includes devices, the gateways, the servers, the applications, and the networks that interconnect all of them. And there's many different types of networks and deployments. So from that perspective, Um, Looking at the technology stack, I think is a nice way to kind of view how do we optimize the energy efficiency and the end-to-end IoT system and reduce the carbon footprint. Breaking up the technology stack into the connectivity piece, the services piece, and the application piece is a nice way to take a look at how do we dissect the overall system, how do we improve, and how do we make this overall system more efficient. And along those lines, IoT is not a one size fits all technology. Taking a look at the different types of use cases that we have to deploy and the different types of requirements, we see there's many different types of connectivity. There's many different types of services, and putting them together into a system that solves a use case and a requirement is actually typically the hardest part. And that's where industry standards, as well as guidelines and best practices, all play an important role in helping us piece together and deploy technology responsibly. So, to date, there's been a lot of focus and attention from the industry and the research community about defining standardized ways to deploy connectivity technologies, whether that's cellular, whether it's non cellular, whether it's local area, wide area. Lots of different technology choices out there, and lots of different optimizations around power consumption and interoperability around these technologies, which is all good. And this will, of course, continue as we push forward into the definition of these technologies. Like, for example, we heard about the 6G on the intro to the panel. As we get better and better, and we define ways to use new technologies like energy harvesting, these connectivity technologies will continue to evolve and get better. But that's not what I'm really here to today to really kind of stress. Here, I would like to kind of think about the perspective as we move up this technology stack beyond just the connectivity piece, and we take into account, we start getting into the realm of the services that get layered over top of the connectivity that sit below the application. This is a nice niche type of area that's getting a lot more exposure as we deploy networks, as we deploy devices, applications, and services themselves as a service. This layer of services that's now evolving in the industry is becoming very important. And around IoT, the 1M to M standard has taken its role as defining a standard way of deploying IoT services. And this is the suite of services here currently defined by 1M to M, and this grows, of course, throughout the different releases. So we've got a toolbox of 1M to M services here that are standardized and that help deploy IoT in a more standardized and a more efficient way. And what we've done recently within 1M to M is we've started a sustainability initiative just to kind of help the industry better understand how to deploy IoT technologies more sustainably, as well as understand the features within the 1M to M standard that really can help your deployment become more sustainable. Things like digital twins, as well as message profiles to make messages smaller, more efficient, ways to let devices sleep longer, like device triggering, and wake them up only when needed, as well as services to offload work from the devices and applications to the service layer. So there's a lot of good things that the 1M10 standard's doing at the service layer and helping IoT and overall technology and to become more sustainable, more deployable, and hopefully reduce the carbon footprint even further when it comes to using IoT technology. So with that, thank you for the intro and the time, and let me turn it back over to the chair, and we can go to the next speaker.
Thank you, Dale. We'll do all the questions at the end. So I'll now move on to the next speaker, Lars Nielsen. I think Lars is unable to join us today, so I request Bindu to read out his message, but he sent us a prepared message.
Um, Thank you. I'll read out my Lars' response to the question on sustainable development goals can only be achieved by using standards which are widely acceptable and available to everyone on fair, reasonable, and non discriminatory terms. The challenges of the world today in terms of sustainability cannot be solved by each country on its own, as it would lack the scale of economies. Sustainable technologies, including the associated standards, must be made available on affordable conditions to the countries around the world to meet the SDGs. Each country must meet SDGs and all countries must meet SDGs. Fragmentation in standards, whether it comes from affordability or geopolitical issues, will delay or maybe even prevent meeting SDGs. Thank you.
Thank you, Bindu. In one of the previous panels, we heard, I think the panelists from Malaysia, that Malaysia is not active in standardization. We have Mo joining us from ITU, and his role is, helping countries participate in the standardization process. So the question for Mo is, how can we ensure that all countries are active in standardization efforts to achieve their respective goals? So over to you, Mo.
Well, thank you very much, and thanks for inviting ITU. But first, I'd like to read a statement from our regional director who covers a broader topic of ITU standardization. I am part of the development sector. As you know, ITU is involved in several ways. In the radio communication sector, we do different standards. In the standardization sector, we do some standards. But in the development, we try to ensure that countries actually can use this and make something out of that. I will speak a bit more about that, but before I'd like to read a statement from our regional director, Ms. Atsuko Okuda, who could not attend today. So basically reads, I'm very pleased to be part of the fifth edition of the TSDSI Tech Deep Dive 2022 conference. While I'm unable to join you virtually, I'm pleased to be able to address you through this modality and to highlight the importance of standards towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals or SDGs. Ladies and gentlemen, despite the phenomenal achievement we have made in terms of ICT's access and use during the COVID lockdown, the digital divide remained a formidable challenge in Asia and the Pacific, as well as in other parts of the world. According to the ITU UNESCO Broadband Commission for Sustainable Development State of Broadband 2022 report, an estimated 5.3 billion people worldwide are now using the internet. However, this leaves an estimated 2.7 billion people unconnected in 2022, predominantly in developing countries. In our region, only 64% of people in Asia and the Pacific are using the internet. This is below the world average of 66%. To tackle this multifaceted digital divide in Asia and the Pacific, international standards play a vital role to ensure that technological innovation spread widely within society and provide digital connectivity and digital services for all. The important work being undertaken by standardization organizations, especially in the ITU's Telecommunication Standardization Bureau, serves as a platform for facilitating discussions and building consensus to ensure interoperability, access to technology, and innovation globally. Such platforms help bridge the standardization gap and ensure that developing countries, especially least developing countries, landlocked developing countries, and small islands developing states, have better access to and participate in the development and use of international standards. Today's panel discussion brings us to the heart of this discussion, with speakers from throughout the world, highlighting how to develop standards that advance achievement of the SDGs, to discover commonalities and interlinkages. Ladies and gentlemen, ITU is not standing still in this regard. In Asia and Pacific, ITU-T has created regional groups under Study Group 3 and Study Group 5 to bring the discussion closer to membership. In August this year, India hosted the Regional Standardization Forum and meeting under the ITU-T Study Group 3, Regional Group for Asia and Oceania. At this meeting, a Bridging the Standardization Gap workshop was held to increase effectiveness on standardization. I'm pleased to note the success of this event and note that it can build further towards achieving the SDGs. The work ahead of us requires cross-sectoral, multi-stakeholder partnership, collaboration, and cooperation. In this regard, I'm delighted to mention that ITU signed a host country agreement with the Government of India in March 2022 to open a new area office and innovation center in New Delhi. Through the generous contribution of the Government of India, this office will not only bring ITU closer to our membership in South Asia, but also will promote digital innovation throughout the Asia Pacific region by leveraging best practices from India and other parts of Asia and the Pacific. I'm also delighted to cite another example of collaboration and cooperation with the government of India. From September 2021 to May 2022, I too hosted a webinar series with TSDSI on digital technology innovation, case studies from India and the region, the Asia Pacific region. This series was successfully organized through the support of the Department of Telecommunication, various ministries of government of India, and partners from the academia and industry. Over 600 people from 35 countries attended this series, with eminent speakers highlighting key aspects and essential ingredients of successful digital technology innovation across a wide range of technology, including digital financial services, terrestrial and non-terrestrial connectivity, 5G, and fintech, among others. May I also take this opportunity to highlight that ITU is indeed a unique organization in the UN context. Our membership consists of not only 193 member states, but over 700 industry and international organizations and 150 academia members. I encourage you to join ITU as a sector or academia member to help us work together to close the digital divide and advance standardization progress for the SDGs. Looking forward to ITU's Quadrennial World Telecommunication Standardization Assembly, or WTSA, which will be hosted by India in 2024. We look forward to bring you the global ITU standard discussion here, and I urge you to mark it in your calendar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be able to join this event and to see so many expert speakers over to this today and the coming week. With deep dives being held on highly technical topic, I look forward to seeing the result of these engaging discussion emerge into new and innovative ideas and partnership. Thank you for your time. Now, I just to sort of close a bit of my own bits about this. My background is technology. I work a long time, 18 years for Silicon Valley companies. What I can tell you, and the reason why I joined ITU was to really try to bring technology to developing countries and to the rest of the world. And in my role, it's really about digital innovation and also really trying to accelerate sustainable development. And one of the things that I'm particularly fond about or have been sort of working on is to really try to help SMEs, innovators, startup to really able to leverage opportunities in their economies, but as well as globally. With that role, a lot of the time people talk about scale up, scale up. Our SMEs have developed solutions, but they're not scaling. And then the one thing people think about is not standards. The first thing they think about, oh, let's try to get them to market. But it's only after they try to get to the market through soft landing programs or different programs, they start realizing that their product is actually not fit for the global market. Not only that, they also start realizing that maybe their countries are not necessarily actively working on helping them through the scale up path. So for me, it's super important that standards are an integral part of helping small and medium businesses grow. Because at the end of the day, sustainable development will only come through one way. It has to come through the power of entrepreneurs who sees opportunities, who develop product and services. And yes, today all those product and services have some kind sort of digital. So it's all about the standards and interoperability. And to close a bit my topic, just a bit of story. I've been trying to join this conference for the past 1 hour, and I was struggling because basically the platform we're using was not necessarily friendly with my own network at ITU here because there was a firewall. Then the next thing I tried to figure out is, after a long discussion with the tech team, they say, well, go on your mobile phone. And then, so you don't have any firewall there. And of course, I go on my mobile phone, but I have another problem, right? I am a Google user, I mean, a Samsung user, which means that and I'm running out of power. And I'm looking for a power because I cannot do a hotspot to continue the work that I'm going to do. And all I see around is basically Apple chargers, right? And luckily, I had a friend who was nearby who had a very specific Samsung charger, which, by the way, today is the standard. It's called USB-C. So my point in standards in terms of hardware is really, really important. Software, people can work around it. There's a lot of interoperability issues people can deal with. But let's take this platform. This is a simple conferencing platform. If you really wanted to get more businesses, you have to think about standards. And we have to ensure that countries really are aware of the challenges of standards for their economy, that countries are engaged to build programs, and that we're not just talking about programs about scaling up standards. It's way beyond that, right? So standardization needs to come in the forefront of development if you want to make progress. I'll stop here and thank you very much for inviting us.
Thank you, Mo. I think that was a very informative message that we need standards for developing products for the global market. Our next speaker is Mr. MP Singhal from CCICI. He is present here in person. So, Mr. Singhal, over to you for your views on standards for sustainable development.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar Sivaranjanji. Very happy evening to all the participants, panelists, and those who are attending online. Definitely taking up the work being done by CCICI, I will highlight some of the issues which I have privileged to attend as working in Government of India, DOT, and other places. Some of the issues which came during my working as an experience, which I want to highlight along with the work done with CCICI. First of all, let's see what is the standard. That is an agreed way of doing something, maybe producing a product or providing a service through a defined process, which is impacting all of us day to day. Definitely, it is from time immemorial, it is impacting us. But my first experience came with the standard when I visited to Gulf country in Kuwait in late 80s. When I went there, some of my electrical devices were not working there. The items I brought from there, they were not working in India. I have to change their plug and sockets. Still, I am facing the problem in the mobile charger. Everybody will have definitely maybe 15 to 20 mobile adapters in their homes. So still, this is just a sheer wastage of the resources, national, international resources, not only wastage of resources, but the pollution which we are creating. So definitely we need standardization. In this regard, Government of India, Ministry of Commerce and Industry did a 3-day conclave in 2018 and released a document on the Indian National Strategy for Standardization, evolving a quality ecosystem. I would like to highlight a quote from our Honorable Prime Minister Modi ji while forwarding the document. He said, the new framework of standardization being adopted can provide far-reaching benefit to economy and will raise the capability of Made in India brand in the global market. Yes, definitely we have to work in India toward the Make in India and realizing the need of our citizen, our population. Standards are definitely recognized as the catalyst for the technical development, industrial growth, well-being of societies, and convergence of new and emerging technologies. So keeping in this, we have to add definitely the focus should be Made in India program and the general welfare of the society. Keeping in this, definitely the telecom standard, as we are dealing with my old organization's Telecom Engineering Center, which is the technical wing of Department of Telecom, is greatly involved in the standardization of telecom product and services in the form of generic requirement and interface requirement since a long time. But lately, there are essential requirement has been introduced. Based on the report, again, there is a standardization of mandatory testing and certification of the telecom equipment has been started by TC to have the proper standard in regard to safety and security of all the equipment, including telecom and IT and broadcasting equipment for the country. This is the brief which I will highlight, but keeping the need of the hours, because the way data explosion was going on and the way the technology is converging, we felt there is a need of huge cloud computing, cloud data centers, and cloud computing. Seeing this need, an organization which is purely volunteer and participation based non-profit organizations was created in 2013-14, Cloud Computing Innovative Council of India. Initially, it was a arm of the IEEE, but later on, it was a full-fledged legal organization was created, which undertook the work of creating the standardization in the field of cloud computing. We started with the research and development in 2017, where the need was felt for the interoperability and portability of the cloud computing. We collaborated with MITI, DOT, TRI, TC, and other organizations, especially smart city organizations, and we started the work for the interoperability and portability cases, which is applicable to India, particularly to Indian scenarios. Till now, the ITU and other organizations are working on the cloud computing in a very generic way. They are creating the standards and working there. But we took the initiative for getting on the specific use case where the application can be run on multiple cloud, or it can be ported from one cloud to another cloud without any problem. So definitely this is going to boost the usage of cloud, and the wastage of resources will be minimized, moving from the vendor lock-in cloud to a open cloud type of scenario, where again it is a very big scene going to be there in the sustainable development, not only for the cloud industry or IT industry, it is overall for telecom and country as a whole. So in this direction, a report was created in 2020. It was led with the partner TSDSI and few of the other CIP and other stakeholders on 1st August 2020. The report was released on the cloud interoperability and portability. The main purpose for this report was to set up the interoperable and portable standards for the cloud computing, and to set up a test bed for testing the actual scenario in the field. In this regard, we have already set up, along with some of the CIP and our partners, expert bodies like IISc, CDAC, IRBT, we have created platform where we are developing an intermega the cloud platform where the work is going on, and definitely it is going to give very boost in the standardization of the aspect in this regard. So this is the journey where we have taken, and we are aggressive on this. Definitely, number of cloud service provider are coming forward and demanding, definitely including the startups for and filling the need of the cloud standards specifically for Indian scenario. Along with this, I would like to caution here also that too much focus on cloud is also should be avoided. We should keep the scope for the research and development and leaving the voluntary standards or come the new standards where can we feel yes the new player which is coming up new I'll not say standard new technology which is coming up, we should give a space to them also. But in any case, standardization is more important for the development of the country, development using the resources. With this, thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Singhal, for your enlightening us on the CCICI's role in cloud computing standards in India. I now invite Puneet Jain of 3GPP SA2. I see he has joined us. Puneet, over to you on whatever you'd like to tell us about 3GPP SA2's activities on sustainable development. I see you've been active on IoT standards. Maybe you'd like to talk about that or anything else. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, and hello, everyone. Thank you, TSDSI, for this opportunity. It's my pleasure to be here. As mentioned during the introduction, I chair 3GPP-SA2 working group, which is responsible for the specification for 5G system architecture and services. I'm also actively involved in Next G Alliance, which is a US 6G initiative to advance North American wireless technology leadership through private sector-led efforts in association with government stakeholders. Next G Alliance Green G working group has published a white paper on the path towards sustainable 6G, and my talk is going to cover some aspects from that paper. As we know, a typical mobile network has four main parts: the end user devices like smartphone and IoT devices, the radio access network, the core network, and the data center, or we call as cloud. GSMA report states that 73% of the energy of the participating operators is consumed in the radio access network. The network core consumes 30% energy, owner data centers 9%, and other operations account for remaining 5%. These statistics shows that the energy efficiency is an end-to-end issue. Despite improvement in energy efficiency, the RAN continues to consume more power than any other part of the network. This is largely due to the new technologies like millimeter wave transceivers and MIMO antennas, all of which requires more power. Fortunately, these technology advances also allow us to communicate more data using less power in terms of watt per bits. 3GPP has defined several technical improvements from 4G to 5G to reduce power consumption. Although RAN power consumption is reduced in 5G, it is still over 50% of the total 5G network's infrastructure consumption. Another trend worth noting is the rise of data center power consumption in 5G. With many of the core network services moving to the cloud in 5G, we see reduction in the energy consumption of the core network elements from 4G to 5G and increase in data center energy consumption as these core services migrate in 5G into data centers. Cloud data centers allow more effective concentration of cooling, lighting, and electricity, reducing power consumption compared to the local compute operations. Total computation performed in data center have increased by 550% since 2010, while total power consumption increased by only 6% over the same period. In 3GPP, energy efficiency has been studied in SA, SA5, and RAN. SA has studied system requirements and principle provide energy efficiency control framework. SA5 has specific concepts, use cases, requirements, and solution for energy efficiency assessment and optimization of energy saving, as well as energy efficiency KPIs. RAN energy efficiency study concentrate on definition of network energy consumptions model, evaluation methodologies and KPIs, also studying and identify techniques for G Node B and UE to improve network energy savings in terms of both base station transmission and reception. 3GPP energy efficiency KPI definitions are under SA5 responsibility. They are based on measurement collected in the RAN and core network functions via ONMA. The KPI's calculation is generalization of the work which was done in HCTC EE work. In release 19, SA1 is undertaking a study on energy efficiency as a service criteria. This study is aiming at analyzing different scenarios and generating requirements, what more to support energy efficiency in various services scenario beside finding energy efficiency solution as in past. The existing studies concentrate more on how to satisfy user experience and try to achieve energy efficiency at the same time. So the requirement, use cases, and solutions are basically within the network itself. Vertical and customers have no approach for energy efficiency related information from the network. Introducing energy efficiency as a service will allow user to have a choice to select proper energy efficiency criteria as well as other network performance parameter when they see need for it. Standards bodies with regulatory and other government agencies when defining next generation 6G system should look into areas that address aspects beyond sustainability, such as digital equity, trust, economic growth, and quality of life. Digital equity means all individuals and communities have access to reliable broadband connection, thereby playing an important role in achieving several UN Sustainable Development Goals. Some examples are defining policy and requirements for affordability, accessibility, geographical availability for mobile broadband technology. Trust is another area which implies safe entry points to information services with demonstrable compliance with well-defined ethical frameworks to ensure that user trust is at the greatest degree possible. Economic growth is another area which implies leveraging technologies to increase productivity, innovation, efficiency, and effectiveness, and to create a new value propositions, business models, and market segments. Last but not the least, using technology to improve quality of life, such as the use of technology in healthcare, education, public safety, and security. Just to summarize, basically, standards bodies, along with the regulatory and other government agencies, can play an important role in fulfilling the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Puneet. That was very informative, especially all the stats on how much power is consumed by various things. So, thank you very much. I now turn to Reena Garg from BIS for BIS's views on standards for sustainable development. Over to you, Reena. We can't hear you. You're muted.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Uh, Hello, everyone. Let me take this opportunity to congratulate TSDSI for organizing this wonderful event. And also, I thank TSDSI to invite BIS for this event. So I have like few slides through which I want to emphasize the role of standards in achieving sustainable development goals. So next slide, please. So just a slide about BIS is the national standards body, and it was established in 1947, and it became a statutory institution under BIS Act 1986, which was revised in 2016. The main activities of BIS are standardization in 15 various disciplines, including electronics and IT. The other disciplines are like civil engineering, mechanical, food, electrical, and so on. So the other task of BIS is quality certification of goods and services, international cooperation. So BIS is the founder member of ISO and IEC. So BIS committee members, technical committee members participate in the international standardization activities being carried out by ISO and IEC. And BIS also imparts training, has a full-fledged training institute in Delhi NCR in Noida. Next slide, please. So basically, like I will not go into the details of all these definitions, although I have it in my presentation. The sustainability. Next slide, please. So there are basically 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. So in the commitment, in India's commitment towards these goals, so BIS has really taken serious efforts to improvise its standards development process to meet the goal of UN SDGs. Next slide, please. So to address these sustainability goals, so there has been BIS is planning a paradigm shift in the standard formulation process. Standard like there is a separate framework being designed which will be introduced in the standardization process. It is in the process of like being developed, that framework. So while preparing the standards, uh, so that the all the issues relating to sustainable development they are being taken care of. They are they are there in the process itself. It has to be ensured during standard formulation process. Next slide, please. So basically, we everybody agrees that standard supports these three pillars of sustainability: economic, social, and environmental. And every standard, most of the standard, have either have direct or indirect impact on one or more SDGs. So next slide. So basically, the role of standard in achieving sustainability is like the economic sustainability. Since standard promote this kind of economic sustainability by facilitating international trade, improving a country's national quality infrastructure, and supporting sustainable business practice. And they cover everything from common and engineering products and efficient farming method to anti-bribery management systems. And the social sustainability, the standards promote social sustainability by helping countries and communities to improve the health and well-being of their citizens. They cover all aspects of social welfare, from healthcare systems and related products to social inclusion and accessibility. Then environmental sustainability standards promote environmental sustainability by helping business and countries manage their environmental impact. They cover such aspects as implementing an environmental management system, measuring and reducing greenhouse gas emission and energy consumption, and encouraging responsible consumption. Next slide, please. So basically, to address all the all the sustainability development goals, the standards, the BIS produces the standards in terms of product. The standards can be product standard, process standard, test method standard, or a system standard like quality management system, environmental management system, and so on, or service standard. So issues which are to be this is what BIS plans to do. Issues to be adequately addressed in case of product standards. They are the raw material, energy consumption from the point of view of resources, then cost over product life cycle, greenhouse gas removals and emission over the life cycle, impact on health and safety, implications on human rights and communities, equitable distribution of benefits to be accrued. So all these factors, all these should be addressed in a standard to make it adhere to the sustainable development goals. And similarly, a process standard should address environmental consequences, human health and safety, societal and economic benefits. Next slide, please. So the key objectives which are to be achieved are to address sustainability in existing standard as well as the new standards to be formulated across all the domains. And then comprehensive guidelines are being developed for the committee members to address sustainability in standards, for which various workshops are being organized, various training sessions are being organized. And then enhancement in engagement with stakeholders to address sustainability in standards. So this is always a challenge, involvement of right kind of like stakeholders, right experts to address all these issues in standards. And next is to leverage the expertise of industries and research bodies in the standard formulation process. Next slide, please. So, to address the sustainability in existing and international standard, like I will just give you briefly what BIS is planning to do, mapping all the existing Indian standards with respect to sustainability parameters, and based on the above assessment, then review and revise the Indian standards, existing Indian standards, and every standard has to be designated as high, medium, or low impact based on its impact on sustainability. So, for carrying out this exercise, we are extensively taking help of interns and other experts in the industry. We are sort of sponsoring these small projects in various disciplines to carry out this extensive exercise. Now, changes in the structure of the Indian standards, which are required to address the sustainability goals, like whenever a new proposal is received in the committees, in the technical committees, so they should always define the SDGs. Like which SDG is proposed, the standard will address, and also the information of all applicable SDGs in the given should be given in the standard, and then the inclusion of the just one minute. Inclusion of the infrastructure like we plan to include informative annexes in the standards, various informative annexures in the standard with respect to sustainability impact of various raw material and the manufacturing process used for the product, and the safety and safe disposal guidelines to be mentioned in the standards, and the gender neutrality point has to be kept in mind while framing new standards, and if not there in the existing standard, those to be revised accordingly. Then optimal requirements for compliance to SDG and environmental labeling. Next slide, please. So, look, there's some other issues relating to sustainability which are to be incorporated in the standard. The type of standards to be developed are like the electricity, water, more efficient farming, lighting, and IT. And then to augment the Indian standards to be augmented or upgrade the existing standard to augment education system and women empowerment, and also upgrading the Indian standard to achieve high level of economic productivity by supporting diversification, innovation, improving resource efficiency, and promoting safe and secure working environment, and also formulate standards for sustainable urbanization, including safe, affordable, and sustainable transports. And last but not the least is the harmonization of Indian standard with international standards, which have best sustainable processes in them. Next slide, please. So there is a document on sustainability framework for standards which is being developed, and BIS is transforming the way the standards are formulated and taken to large scale implementation by all the stakeholders. And it is now it is necessary that the sustainability dimension to Indian standards are deeply ingrained in the standard, so that it leads to inclusive growth of the industry and result in achieving orderly and sustainable development. So, with this aim, the framework is being developed. Next slide, please. So here, that was in general what BIS is trying to do with respect to the its standard formulation process, and we have the committees in our department dealing with emerging technology areas like IoT, AI, blockchain, smart manufacturing, smart cities, infrastructure, and so on. So, role of ICT standards and SDGs, I have mapped the SDGs with the various where the role of ICT comes into play. But I don't think we have sufficient time. But the slides, I think, will be made available to the participants. So I will just like to just, for example, like SDG 3, good health and well-being. So we have all standards on active assisted living, accessibility, electronic health record standards. So all these standards contribute to SDG 3. So BIS is constantly in the process of developing these standards, keeping in mind various SDGs and their goals. So, so I think this is a list going up to SDG 17. So I will not go into the details and stop here. But at the same time, I would urge the stakeholders and experts present here to come and like participate in BIS standard formulation process. And because we have always been constantly looking towards right experts, right stakeholders to contribute to this activity. So like whosoever wants to work with BIS committees is always welcome, and they can contact me at reena.garg@bis.gov.in. Thank you.
Thank you, Reena. Our last speaker is Sudhir Dikshit, but from IEEE SA, but I don't see him. Is Sudhir there? Can the IT team tell us? If he's not there, then we'll move on. I think he may have a schedule conflict and we are 45 minutes late.
So the message that I got from the coordinator is he's not been able to join the session
Okay,
so far.
that's fine. Okay. So we have now, this session has run nearly 1 hour. I want to ask the organizers, do we have time for questions or should I be winding up?
So maybe another 5 minutes for a
Okay.
Q&A round, and then we
So
can wind up.
I will summarize in 1 to 2 minutes while you think of questions. So maybe we can take 2 or 3 questions at most. So I think we heard from BIS, Reena, on what we need to do in standards for sustainability. I think it's something that we need to imbibe. Then we heard from Mr. Singhal on what CCICI is doing for cloud computing standards in India. Okay, maybe anticipating this, Lars from GCF said we shouldn't develop only country-specific standards, and all standards need to be global. I think Mo gave us a very good reason that if you're not global, then your industry cannot sell globally. I think that was a compelling reason for all countries to have global standards. And then both Mo and then Puneet underscored that while sustainable development is important, the first thing is to have development. So there are many countries which don't have internet access. Only 64% of countries in our region have internet access. There's need for broadband. There's need for fintech. There's need for many things for development. So I think for many countries, it's standards for development, and then maybe after that, sustainable development. I think that's a very important point. And last, actually first, Dale from 1M2M made the point that standards need to be developed a priori, grounds up, taking the end-to-end view, for energy efficiency or sustainable. I think that's a lesson that all other bodies can also take, including, for the 360 standards that we're developing or any other standard. So I think I did summarize briefly all the speakers. Now, I turn it over to the audience here for questions. Okay, so please, anyone.
Any questions from the audience in the room? Okay. Mr. Kapoor?
This is a question for Madam Reena Garg. Regarding the health standards, are you doing it only for the equipment parts, or on the software side also you are doing the health standard development?
So, like we have a separate department on medical health and hospital department. So that department takes care of standardization in this field, and we are mirroring the work of ISO TC 215, which is on health informatics. So that is producing software standard as well.
Any other questions?
I think that answers your
Yes. Thank you, Reena.
your query. So if you want more details, look like you, I can connect you with the concerned people there.
Yeah, hello. I am SD Saxena from the telecom operators. See what Mo said and what the chairman has been mentioning. I find there is a conflict there because SDG, in addition to what we have in India in terms of development, is at conflict. For example, the base stations are not running on power all the time. We have to put in diesel engine sets and a whole lot of things. Therefore, will there be an attempt to bring in those factors when we are evolving SDG standards?
Okay, thank you. Mo, would you like to take that question?
I'm not sure I can answer that question, but I think that we have to realize that, well, first of all, we have to think of standards as something that makes the market grow, that makes basically opportunities for everybody. However, where these standards are and what's happening in today's world is depending. Whether we have base stations still running on power generators, that's sort of a different story, right? So just trying to limit the scope to why we need standards, how we can promote more standardization, and how we can have more innovators trying to solve that. Now, the energy issue in terms of the base stations, yes, in terms of the end-to-end standardization, which needs to happen, which I think several of the other speakers mentioned this. We have to look at standards and an end-to-end. So I am not sure I can fully answer the questions with regard to the electrical grid and other stuff. But that's another set of standardization, right, that gets there. But availability of basic needs or infrastructure energy, yes, for sure. We have to work on that as well.
Thank you, Mo. If I can attempt an answer, I think everything's not just in the domain of telecom. If, as a world, we have to reduce the carbon footprint, and as India, we have to reduce by some date, then we have to also make the electric grid reliable enough that we do not need diesel generators. I think we need a holistic view of that kind. Like, all the problems cannot be pushed only to the telecom sector, right? This is a nationwide or global problem. Okay. So, are there any other questions?
If I may, I wanted to ask a question.
Oh, you can ask a question.
Thank you,
and
sir.
that will be the last one.
Thank you. So the COVID era has taught us that we are able to operate in a hybrid, in a almost like in an online manner. So do you think working and now there was this need for actually interacting in person? It has its advantages. So do you think digital technologies can be used to come to some to help many of us work in a hybrid manner, which would help reduce the carbon footprint from a transport point of view? So the best of both worlds.
Okay, I think you almost answered your own question, but is there anybody else on the panel who'd like to say something on this point in response to Bindu?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, sure.
I think that we will never replace human to human contacts, right? I'm not in this room. I don't see people. I don't know what people are doing, and I cannot connect to them as much as we can connect, if we were meeting physically. So we have seen a return back to the travel. We have seen it, and actually it makes a big difference, right? So from the point of view of that conversation, are we going to be able to be more productive? Can we have more people participate in the decision making? Because now we have a new behavior and that we think that it's okay. We don't have to always be there physically. Yes, that's a good improvement. But will we ever get rid of the physical? At this point, I don't think we are there, and I don't think we should.
Thank you, Mo. On that note, let us conclude this panel discussion. I thank each of the panelists again for taking the time and also bearing with the delays, especially if you're remote and you're, running into conflicts with your next meeting. Thank you all once more. And the audience here, I think there's dinner. So the audience here is invited to dinner.
Yeah.
The rest, you have your own dinner. Thank you.
And and before we wrap up, the customary photographs and then a round of felicitations. So can we have all the panelists, please, on the in the focus for the photograph?
So one thing more is you missed dinner because you're not here.
Pamela, please felicitate Dr. Kumar Sivarajan for chairing this session. Pamela, if you can just turn for the photograph. So we will make sure that it.
You can plant it here or you travel.
And Mr. Singhal, please.
You guys got the best spot, for staying late. Staying late, you got the most beautiful color and the green part. Green jade is the green.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, audience, for staying with us. The people who are in the room are invited to dinner. And before that, may I request Pamela to please quickly summarize the discussions, the 4 panels.
Okay, so thank you everybody. Really appreciate your staying with us through the day. And I think quick summary, our secretary was here to kick off the whole session, and he urged us to summarize all our learnings and gave a lot of encouragement and support to the activities that we've done. A lot of appreciation for what TSDSI has achieved so far, and he has high expectations from what we're going to do in the era of 6G and beyond. So let's gear up for that. And I think the 4 panels themselves were so rich in the content, and I really appreciate the efforts put by the moderators and the speakers. I think we had more than 25 speakers, 25 to 30 speakers, and including moderators involved in putting these panels together, and such rich content and insights were there. I plan to go over these videos in detail and use them as a baseline for this white paper that we are going to write for the secretary. So thank you very much, and I'll share that white paper with all of you.
Thank you, Pamela. And now all the attendees are invited to please stay back for dinner. Dinner will be held here